A record-setting day for Joe Mixon and the Cincinnati Bengals. They run roughshod over the Carolina Panthers. Mike Petraglia inside Paycor Stadium. The Bengals with a resounding 42-21 win over Carolina heading into their bye week. And yes, they match last year's mark at the bye of 5-4. But what a day for one Joe Mixon. He sets a franchise record with 5 touchdowns, 4 rushing, and 1 receiving as the Bengals raced out to a 35-0 halftime lead and never looked back. After the game, as you can imagine, Joe Mixon was thanking not only his offensive line, but the gameplay calling of Brian Callahan and Zach Taylor. Joe Mixon was saying after the game, they stuck with the game plan, and lo and behold, the game plan of running the ball actually worked out for the Bengals today. And yes, it did, to the tune of 152 yards on 22 carries. Joe Mixon toted the ball here on Sunday at 7 yards a clip. That is winning football. Something else that's winning football, when you rush the ball for 239 yards like the Bengals did here on Sunday afternoon against a woeful Carolina defense, you're going to win most of the time. That's what Joe Burrow said after the game, and certainly that held up very true. It was a game where Joe Burrow didn't have to do much, but when he did, like in the first drive of the game when he was 5 for 5 for 59 yards, leading the Bengals on a touchdown right down the field to get out to an early 7-0 lead, Joe Burrow was effective on the day, 22 of 28 on the afternoon, 223 yards. He had 1 touchdown, didn't turn the ball over, and he only needed to play about 2.5 quarters of this game, or 2 3/4 of a quarter, as Brandon Allen came in late in the third quarter, and Joe Burrow had the rest of the afternoon off. Joe Burrow certainly very relieved to see Joe Mixon have the kind of day that he did. Joe Mixon had 4 touchdowns by halftime, 3 rushing and 1 receiving. Burrow finding him after a Jesse Bates interception late in the first half set the Bengals up at the Carolina 23. A couple of plays later, it was Burrow on third down finding Joe Mixon in the back of the end zone. Mixon said about this game, Brian Callahan on Saturday night went into the team meeting and told the offense, we're going to set the tempo, we're going to challenge you, we want to run this ball against Carolina, and they spoke it into existence, said Joe Mixon after today's game. It was good to see the Bengals play with a little bit of air of cockiness and confidence, especially heading into the bye when they have the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road 2 Sunday nights from right now in Pittsburgh and at Acrisure Field. The Bengals are going to have to bring that kind of physicality that they showed here on Sunday afternoon. Not only was Mixon tremendous, the Bengals defense was tremendous. They didn't allow a first down by the Carolina Panthers offense until the second half. Think about that. The only first down the Bengals allowed in the first half was a illegal contact penalty committed by Cam Taylor-Britt late in the second quarter. That was it. It was 3 and out for the first 3 times that Carolina touched the ball. The Bengals responded on 2 of those 3 drives with touchdowns. It was Jermaine Pratt and Jesse Bates, as I mentioned, getting interceptions of P.J. Walker in this game. P.J. Walker was benched at halftime with the team down 35-0, and old friend Baker Mayfield came in, and he provided the only offense for the Carolina Panthers. He had a couple of touchdown passes in a 21-point second half for Carolina, but by that time the game was well in hand, of course. But the big story of the day, Joe Mixon thanking his offensive line for helping him set a new Cincinnati Bengals team record with 4 rushing touchdowns and 1 receiving touchdown. No Bengal had ever scored 5 touchdowns in a single game until today in a 42-21 win. To quote Joe Mixon after this game, the offensive line, the tight ends, the wide receivers, they all blocked their asses off, and it really showed. Joe Mixon was very appreciative of this. He also said during the kind of the tough times of the last couple of weeks when it's been hard for the Bengals to get their run game going, he never doubted himself, but he had a lot of support from friends and family around him who love him and support him and never let him get too down in the dumps. And Mixon made a point after the game to say, I never doubted what I could do for this team. This just shows we still have it in us, and I still have it in myself to put out a performance like I did here today. Again, the Bengals beat back the Carolina Panthers by a score of 42-21 heading into the bye with a 5-4 record. They are a half game behind the Baltimore Ravens, who play Monday night in New Orleans. If the Ravens happen to stumble and lose that game, the Bengals will head into the bye tied with the Ravens atop the AFC North. Be sure to follow all of my coverage and locker room reaction and podium reaction on Twitter at Trags, Trags, of course, online at clnsmedia.com. And as always, click on the link below and subscribe to my Jungle Roar podcast YouTube page. Want to hear all of your comments? I'm sure they're mostly positive after this 42-21 win here on Sunday. Comment in the comment section below. Inside Paycor Stadium, Mike Petraglia, CLNS Media.